Today we're talking with Aly Slaughter. Aly has degrees in law, nutrition, and is also a 500-hour yoga instructor. On top of that, she has a visual impairment that classifies her as legally blind. So today we're going to talk with her about her journey through teaching yoga with that visual impairment and how that has strengthened her verbal cueing and other parts of her life. Encompassed with that, we'll talk about healing in general, embracing your gifts, and really stepping into shit that scares you. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. We'll see you on the other side. All right, welcome back to our show. Today we're talking with Aly Slaughter. Aly is a newer friend to me, introduced by a person I'm going to have on the podcast later on named Patrick. Well, one of the many reasons Aly's story really spoke to me is she's a yoga teacher, which is something I share as well. But Aly is teaching with a visual impairment, and that for me was one of those like, oh, okay. What would I do how would I teach a yoga class if I couldn't see the students that I was working with? And that immediately got my head turning. I'm like, okay, I don't care what else this woman does. We're going to figure it out. I'm going to have her on the show because if anything, I just want to talk to her about yoga and how she accepts the yoga practice with the gifts that she has, right? And so Aly is a 500-hour RYT yoga instructor. She is a registered dietary nutritionist, and also has a degree in law. And so has this multitude of being a student of just knowledge, gaining knowledge as much as she can, and now applying that knowledge in this most beautiful, unique way, embracing the gifts that she has on the way. So, Aly, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk to you about how you interpret the practice of yoga and just the life that you live and the cool shit that you've been doing. So thank you so much for being here, Aly.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. And that was such a nice introduction. And am I allowed to give a shout out
to most definitely,
Pat?
Yeah. Patrick Schwarzkopf, good man.
Yes. Claps all around for him. He's one of my lifelong best friends. We went to grade school, high school together. And, there's just those people in life that, are lifers. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, so thank you to him, and I can't wait to hear his episode as well. So I love you, buddy.
Hell yeah, yeah! Big shout out to Big Patrick. Hell yeah. Well, Aly, thank you so much again for being here. Like I said in the intro, I'm just enamored by people when they embrace the gifts that they have, and that word "gifts" can sound kind of off-putting to people that might have some kind of what the masses would consider a disability. But one of the things that I've learned in my personal spiritual journey is that, and I'm not trying to force that word on anybody that has, a hearing impairment, a visual impairment, a life impairment of some way. But I do embrace the idea of just changing the vocabulary around the things that we might seem downtrodden about. And, so when we can finally step out of the shadow of what we might feel might be something holding us back and find the way to embrace that thing as a gift, I think it's such a beautiful change in our cellular structure, in our subconscious. It really hits us in a deep way to embrace the life that we have instead of wishing that we had something else or didn't have this thing or, whatever that might be, that wish that we might have. So for you, Aly, were you born with a visual impairment or was this something that kind of progressed over time?
I was, and I love your explanation of using the term gift. I think that's fantastic because the verbiage that we use in everything is so important, and the words that we tell ourselves and the words that we say to others. And there's definitely been more than a lot of times in my life that I've felt sorry for myself because of that difference that I have from, growing up to the other kids, turning 16 and not getting a license like the rest of my friends, going to undergrad and walking through through the cafeteria line and having to have my friends tell me what the foods were and not being, and knowing, because I can't see distance, but I can see close up. So I'm not going to put my head down in the food to see what it is.
Gotcha.
But there's been a lot of, I can tell, from the, I don't know, the way people react. A person that might be working at a restaurant or the dining hall cafeteria, for example. I'm already going on a tangent, Adam. But you can tell that they're kind of why does that person need their friend? Can they not read the menu? Can they, like if there is a menu board, for example, I'll stand there and have someone read it to me. So yeah, there are times that, feel sorry for yourself. It's like, God, people know I'm different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so circling back to your original question,
Mm-hmm.
when I was born, the doctors told my parents, I don't think she's blind. And that's kind of where it was. My aunt at the time, she's still my aunt. She passed away. But anyway, she was working for an eye doctor, a specialist, a children's eye doctor in St. Louis. So she got me in. They discovered that I wasn't completely blind, but I, tests, whatnot. So I was put in glasses when I was a year old. I switched to contacts when I was 12.
I have to say real quick, I bet you looked damn adorable with glasses at 1 year old. My little one, my youngest Harper, has a astigmatism in her eye, and had to have glasses when she was like 5 or 6. And it's just the most adorable thing when children wear glasses. I don't know what it is, but it just melts my heart.
It really is.
Good Lord, it's so cute.
It really is. Yeah, my mom still has all my little pairs, including numerous broken pairs because I'm the oldest, and I. 2 little brothers when you're a 4-year-old with little brothers.
Oh, gosh.
There's many a broken pair. So, yeah. And I went to traditional school, small Catholic school my entire life, actually,
wow.
Including undergrad and law school. And so, but in grade school, high school, I was always smart in school. And, even the eye doctors, she just needs to read close up, or she might have to go stand in front of the chalkboard. I'm dating myself because we use the chalk.
Right there with you, girl.
But I got through it, and I had help from a lot of friends and teachers, and yeah, and then you and I were kind of talking before we started. Then I discovered I didn't know how to be out in the real world until my 20s when I learned some blindness training skills, some orientation and mobility. I learned it was when I was in law school that I had to learn how to learn traffic patterns so that I could cross the street by myself. Here I am going to law school, and I have my friends walking me back and forth across the street.
Was that something that that you just kind of found as you got into college? Or was that therapy or training that wasn't even really thought of when you were younger and growing up? Because I know, a lot of these gifts that people are starting to have, we haven't really found the best way to embrace them or to train or to teach alternative methods for, so you don't have your hearing or you don't have your sight. What are some alternative methods that you can get around with? Was that something that wasn't really available to you until you got to that point in college, to where that's something you wanted to seek out? Or was that...
I think it could have been available had we known. Again, because of the small schools I went to, and because I was pretty successful in school and in my learning. I know in the public school setting, they have, what are they called? I want to say IEP, individual education plans, I think it stands for.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so I know in the public school setting, perhaps then I would have been given more opportunities for such training. And I actually think my parents might sometimes feel a little bit guilty about it, but they don't need to, because they're the best.
Right. You don't know what you don't know until you know it,
Right, exactly. So we didn't learn. None of us learned. My parents didn't know, we didn't know that I was eligible for some of these services because I could see, because at the time it's like, okay, she's not totally blind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've always felt like I've been in between the two worlds. I've never been a part of that sighted world, or I've never felt fully a part of the blindness community, honestly. So
interesting. Does that lead, have you felt a little bit of disjointedness from that? Not feeling fully not, I don't know if belonging is the right word, but because I know there's some, I have friends that are biracial in some ways, and
Right.
some maybe half white, half black, half Asian, half black, some kind of
Hmm.
combination. And I feel I get a lot of that similar feedback from them. It's like I don't feel like I belong to either race because if I,
Uh-huh.
let's say black and white, half black, half white, the white people don't really accept you because you look more black than white, and the black
Hmm.
community doesn't really accept you because you're not as black, and so and I'm not saying that that's a very broad brushstroke statement. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but that is a reality for a lot of people. So was that something that you kind of felt, that disassociation between the sighted community or the visually impaired community?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And I'm already going to veer us into the yoga direction.
Damn straight.
Because because that's what I do.
Uh-huh.
I think that feeling that, on the edge or on the, in between, has really sparked, and I hesitate to use the word obsession, but truly it kind of is an obsession. And maybe I need to rein back on that and work on it. But I have this obsession about everyone feeling included in everything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want everyone to feel welcome in every single aspect of life. And it's a blessing and a curse.
I could imagine, yeah. Yeah, because you have the biggest heart to want to include everybody, but there's also the reality of either people don't want to be included. Some people like to feel that disclusion because it gives them an excuse to feel the way that they feel. So there's it's almost like that Stockholm syndrome idea. You've been a captive for so long, you start to identify with your captors. It's like, oh, they're not that bad. Even though they're holding me at gunpoint, they're fine. It's like depression and anxiety. Right. You're not that bad. You keep me warm at night. A little shaky and depressed, but it's all good. Got a blanket.
Yeah, and we get so used to those feelings that then we just, and those become comfortable, and then it's sometimes hard to get out of those. And I've taken it far, and it's something that I'm working on. Like I said, with using the word obsession. I mean, I've taken it to the fact that my feelings get extremely hurt if I'm not invited with all my friends, or not with all of them, but if people are doing something and I'm not included, I take it much more personally than the average person, I think. And so it's something I am working on, but I think it all kind of stems from just that feeling of never being fully something.
Yeah, no,
if that makes sense.
It really does. It really does. And one of the things with humans that we know is that we want to feel like we're a part of something. Want to feel like we belong, like we have a purpose. And if we're not, if we don't have that, we kind of flail around until we find it. So was yoga one of the things that you found that was that community that you could be a part of and that you felt embraced by?
Oh yeah, I said I was going to veer to yoga, and then I just didn't even talk about it. When I learned that one of the back meaning, there's so many back meanings, but one of the essence of the word yoga is unity. It's like, oh my gosh, yes. This is why I love it, because unity is like bringing everybody together, and you can't spell the word community without the word unity. And then when I started to learn more about yoga, when I got into, can we start going into how I got into yoga?
Oh, get in there, girl. I actually have one more thing I want to bring up before you do that, because I love I love the word community. And I've been trying to find like the roots of words recently, and not like seeking them out, but when they come across my path, I'm like, oh, that's great, origin of that word. And I love the word community because when you break it down, it's common unity. You have a common unity between subjects, whatever that case is, but you have this common unity, and it's such a beautiful thing when you can find that with a group, especially in a healthy way. So yoga was one of those things for me too. And it was one of the, I didn't realize I didn't have community or didn't want community or didn't need community until I found it and was like, oh, this is that hug that I've always wanted that never knew that I could have.
Yeah.
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 So what was the toe dip in for you? Was it like take a class and be like, holy shit, what's this? Or was it, what was that?
No, I hated yoga when I first started. Oh my gosh. So I, like many people in the Western world, I got into it for the exercise, for the fitness component.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been pretty active, and was lifting weights a lot, and, lifting weights shortens your muscles, and yoga helps to lengthen them. So, I'm like, I need to start getting into some of these yoga classes and because I'm not good at after a workout, like doing stretching or anything.
Right.
So I need to do some yoga, and people listening here obviously don't know this, but I'm pacing around my room as we talk. I told you, because I have a lot of nervous energy. Like, I always need to be moving, and still, even, and again, that's something I'm still working on. Because with yoga, we'd like to try to embrace that stillness, and we all need to learn how to slow down. But so the first couple times, I took yoga, I'm like, in Shavasana, I'm like, oh my God, is this going to ever end?
It is the hardest pose in yoga.
Oh my God, I hate this. This is so boring.
Uh-huh.
And I stuck with it, and I really started to enjoy it. However, at the same time, when I was going to classes typically with a friend, and oftentimes I didn't know what we were supposed to be doing. So I would have to turn my head to try to look at my friend who was next to me, or, whatever other person in the class, whoever the closest person was, if I, didn't exactly know what we were doing. So,
do you mind if I ask a question? Did you let the teacher know ahead of time when you came in that you had a visual impairment of any sort, or was it just like, hi, I'm Aly, I'm going to go take class?
Yeah. Okay.
No,
I didn't. It was at the local gym, it was like it wasn't like a yoga not that there's anything wrong with that. Yeah. I used to teach classes at the gym. You know what I mean?
Totally, yeah.
Just a different environment.
It really is. Yeah, definitely. It's more of the classes are you can get a really good class still, in my opinion, right? So this is my take on gym yoga versus studio yoga. You could still get a great class. It's the community side that really, I wouldn't say is lacking in a gym setting, but you definitely get more of an opportunity to have community in a yoga studio setting. In my opinion, that's the way I do that.
No, yeah, and just from my experience, that I agree.
Right.
Yeah, so I got into yoga for the workout. Essentially, stuck with it because I started reading more and more about the benefits of yoga on anxiety, depression, PTSD, all of which I also live with. And, okay, I'm going to keep doing this, keep at it. And then, I liked it so much that I'm like, you know what? I struggle at this because I can't always see what's going on, but I like it. I'm starting to like it. I'm starting to be okay in Shavasana.
Right.
I also don't currently have a job and still don't really know what I want to do with my life. I know I don't want to be at a computer all day long. I know I want to interact with people. I know that I just love people. Like I said, you and we were already best friends after we talked the first phone call last week. Now we're like Facebook friends, and we're besties now.
Yeah, you're on my Christmas card list. I'm going to send you an invitation to my kid's graduation. Like, things are happening.
Oh, I mean, I'll probably meet you in a couple months when I go out to visit Pat and Liz. So.
Hell yeah, exactly. There you go.
It's in the works. But yeah, so I'm like, I know I want to work with people. I know I want to also help people to improve their own lives, to feel better about themselves. And I just started thinking more and more about the yoga teacher training. Also, I can see better in dim lighting. And so I'm like, I can just be here in community with people in the dark. Like, awesome.
Hell yeah.
That's helpful for me in my eyes. So
play to your strengths. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So I did it. I was actually I see this eye doctor, a specialist in Iowa, every 2 years. And I was sitting in an appointment, and it was November of 2017. And the student, it's a teaching hospital. The student was like, is there anything that you don't do because of your vision, because of your eyesight? And I was like, I'm scared to go to India by myself. That was my immediate response. And he kind of laughed, and he's like, well, I wouldn't go to India by myself either. And then I start thinking, and I'm thinking, well, why not? like, why wouldn't you, I didn't say this to him, but I'm like, why
Right.
wouldn't you go? I know plenty of people that travel solo. I know plenty of people that have gone by themselves. So then I don't know, something just sparked and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I'm going to find a yoga teacher training program there. And I did. I started researching programs. I found one that offered scholarships. I applied for it. I got accepted. And by May of 2018, I was on a plane to India by myself.
Damn straight. Hell yeah. And was this your 200-hour teacher training that you did?
It was.
Okay.
And it was one of those 4-week immersion programs, which are good and bad.
Yeah, right. Yes. You know, and I think that, you know, personally, so I used to work as a teacher trainer for a number of years after I finished my yoga teacher training personally. I was teaching classes, but I also got brought on by a teacher training group and was, you know, helping stabilize their business on a financial side first. But then after I got that, I started doing workshops and, you know, holding space for those. And we did multiple different combinations of, you know, the immersion, you know, 2-week intensive, right? You have 200 hours in 2 weeks. You're there every day, 8 hours. You're doing yoga like 4 times a day. Like, it's crazy. We did the weekends, you know, for, you know, 2 months. That kind of worked out. But, you know, there's, you know, I got to say I don't think there's like a sweet spot for the information delivery of yoga. I think it's really what works with the time that you have. And then you get the certification and then you just fill in the blanks afterwards.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot of information, you know, from the philosophy to the practical and then you have the different styles, you know, there's a lot of groups that try to shove all these styles in together, you know, like a Hatha Vinyasa and Yin training in a 200 hours. Like, good God, like where's the philosophy? Where's the practical coming in at? You know, so I feel you. I feel you. There's a lot of information to cram in, especially in an intensive.
Yeah. And then that hasn't even been 4 years for me. And I still have so much to learn. I did my 300-hour sort of near the beginning of the lockdown. I don't know. Time is weird these days. It was sometime in 2020.
Right. Yeah.
And it was all online and, you know, self-paced and everything. And even with that, it was good and bad because that was probably my first online training that I had done. And again, I'm such a person that loves community, loves being with people. I learn better in person. I connect with people better in person, even though I'm teaching on Zoom right now still. But that online training, it was hard for me. And so there's still so much. And you know what, for the rest of my life, for the rest of your life, for the rest of everyone's life, we're all going to be continuously learning and growing and changing our minds and unlearning and all of it.
Exactly. You know what? Get ready for it because that's exactly. It's like, you know, death and taxes, right? People say, oh, the only thing guaranteed in life is death and taxes. You know, also change. You're going to change. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to grow. Yeah. You're going to progress. You might even backtrack a little bit, but that's still change. And that's stuff we got to figure out.
For sure.
Hell yeah. So with your 200-hour teacher training, that 4-week immersion in India, I've always dreamt of doing a teacher training or a workshop or some type of, you know, some type of yogic practice in India. I have not been there yet. But what was that experience like for you? So having your 300-hour online and your 200-hour in person in like a spiritual, beautiful place like India, you know, what was that experience like for you?
Again, kind of like the training, good and bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it was awesome. It really was. I was in Rishikesh, you know, it was, let me think. I know I actually went a week early to do some touring. I joined up with a tour group, but, cause I didn't know if I'd be back to India. I'm like, I can't go to India and not see the Taj Mahal.
Exactly. So, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I remember I flew from Delhi to the closest airport to Rishikesh. I had actually connected with, another student from the States before. I don't even remember how we got connected. You know, social media, again, another blessing and curse.
Right.
We discovered we were both heading there. And so we met up and at that airport and we were able to actually get up to Rishikesh together and everything. So yeah, it was just, I love Asia. I've been to a few places. I'm kind of obsessed with Asia as well, but so it was, you know, a beautiful place. It was I loved the little town. I loved all the friends I made there. It was really intense. You know, we only had Sundays off, I think, because it was like, again, 200 hours in 4 weeks. So it's like I want to go back to just be. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yes. Just to be in the place, feel the not have like
Yeah.
an agenda, things to do. Yeah,
Yes.
totally. Well,
Yeah.
a question.
Some people stayed afterwards, and I was like regretting that I didn't stay a few days extra in Rishikesh just to enjoy
Yeah,
the.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, hopefully you get back there. Well,
I
I
will.
do have a question about the training itself. Was the training center set up to assist you in the way that you needed to be assisted?
Uh,
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right.
I think I was probably one of their first students with a visual impairment / low vision.
Okay.
Yeah, and so again, I kind of reverted to. I'm a lot better now as an adult, and I started learning how to do this in undergraduate as well as especially in law school, becoming an advocate for myself and what I need. So I was a lot better about that to the trainers there.
Yeah. That's big work in itself, advocating for yourself, like just stepping into the
in a
knowledge.
different country.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh man, wow.
So that kind of, there was kind of just that difference sometimes of understanding like my vision and my needs. And so luckily, I'm still pretty good at school, and I had the support of my peers, my new best friends, and we formed study groups, and they helped me, and we did it together. So
that's beautiful. Do you still keep in touch with some of the folks that were in your teacher training?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. One's up in Chicago. Every time I go there, I shouldn't say this out loud in case other people hear, but he's, I always used to get in touch with every single person I knew. And especially because of COVID, you kind of have to shrink that down when you're not trying to like do a whole lot sometimes. Right. So, yeah, but he's one that I always, contact. So I definitely, and there's more of them too. There's more people that I definitely, one of my friends is from the Philippines. She, before pandemic, she came here and stayed with me for 2 weeks. We actually did the accessible yoga training together in St. Louis. And then another friend he actually is from India, and he was in my training, and he was traveling to the United States. So he came and stayed with me for a week.
Oh, very cool. I love taking yoga classes in Chicago. I've been to in and out of Chicago a number of times for conferences, and my past life, working in corporations and things like that. We have conferences in like the big hotels down there and shit. But I always would find yoga classes, and I do have to say I didn't find many individual studios. They were mainly like a Core Power, or I think one of the corporation or the corporate concepts up there is called Yoga 6. Or one of the masks, And so I like to support the individuals as much as I can. Those are the type of studios I teach at, but got to get your yoga where you can. And I've gotten some really, really great classes from some folks in Chicago. And one of the things I love the most about taking yoga in different areas is the interpretation of the yoga practice is different from place to place. And it could be even from city to city, like I could be taking yoga in Seattle and then go 20 miles to Kirkland, and it's vastly different. The interpretation of what a vinyasa or a power practice might be. So, when I go to Chicago, they're doing transitions that I've never thought of, or, all these different sequencing that hasn't crossed my mind. I'm like, yes, fill this up. This is what I need right now. I need the creativeness. Yeah. I need the that community, the ideas. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. And I think it's just person to person as well. Teacher to teacher. We all just kind of, it's like how I go out on tangents, I think we all just sort of make it our own, and then take our own out into the world, and then hope that everyone else takes it out on their own as well. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Like, there's 7.5 billion different people in this world. That gives us 7.5 billion different perspectives. Like we can't all think the same, see the same, and experience the same shit. It's a very good point. Yeah. So with after you got your certificates, were you teaching in a in-person studio before COVID happened?
I was. So for about a year. So it took me, I finished 200 hour in June of 18. It took me until February to start teaching. I was so nervous, and again, a lot of it came back to my vision. all right, I got the certificate. How am I actually going to do this? Like,
Right.
how, like, I can't. And part of it was my guilt and shame for like, okay, I've got that law degree and I passed the bar and I've never used it. Like I can't just continue to get these certificates and not use them.
Right.
So I'm going to force myself to, here we are getting into the shit that scares you
There you
besides
go.
my flight to India by myself, but, but, I went down. I remember it was November. I'm having a brain freeze. The day after Thanksgiving.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's like small. It's not Small Business
Black
Saturday.
Friday.
Maybe it was
Black Friday.
Black Friday.
Yeah.
No, so maybe it was small. So it was the Small Business Saturday.
Okay.
Is that what
Okay.
it's called? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So I'm downtown in my hometown, and the yoga studio is having like a special, and I go in. And I was just like the owner was there, and I'm like, so what's your process of hiring yoga teachers? She's like, oh, are you one? I was like, well, yeah, I guess, kind of. I got my certificate, but, and I've never taught, and I'm pretty nervous about it. And she was so great. She was so kind. And she's like, I'd love, whenever you're ready, I'd love to have you just teach me a sample class. And she kind of stayed on me, and I so appreciate that. And I'll always be grateful to her. Her name's Vicky, and because she emailed me in December and in January, just letting you know whenever you're ready. So in February, I taught a couple 30-minute meditation classes. They didn't go over great. Again, Western world, most people want to move and come to yoga. So one of the other teachers put out she needed a sub for the end of March. And I was like, I'm just going to sign up for it. Like I basically, again, forcing myself to do something. Like if I don't just sign up for something, I'm not going to do it. So that was the end of March of 19. So then I started teaching there, and then I added, the local gym where I had originally started my yoga practice.
Yeah.
I added another studio. I added the community college. I added a senior center. So I was teaching at 5 different places by the time the lockdown started a year later.
Damn, good for you. Really way to lean into that fear, just like I'm afraid of it. I'm just going to put my damn heart and soul into it.
Yeah. And it was, oh gosh, I was so nervous. I'm sure, as everyone is, I was so nervous. However, I remember talking to a few different teachers, like, okay, how'd you start? Like, what'd you do? And a lot of them told me, like, I would have notes underneath my mat. And if I needed to, I would flip my mat and look at my notes. And I'm thinking, that's not going to work for me.
Right. Yep. Uh-huh.
I have to revert to what I did in school, and I rely on my good memory. So I'm just going to have to make up my sequences in my head. I might not get the verbiage, the verbiage is going to be different. I'm not going to memorize exactly what I'm going to say, but I'm certainly going to at least have a sequence in my head. And I'm not going to be able to rely on notes or anything. So,
well, I think that's, and that's, I appreciate you bringing this section up so much, because there's so many different ways to teach your class, guide your class, to get help while you're guiding your class, because there's so many plates to keep spinning when you first start anything new. There's so many things to learn and to remember about and all that stuff. And especially we'll do a hot yoga situation, right? In the hot yoga situation, you have the heat that you're monitoring. The studio I work at, you also have humidifiers. Then you have the music that's going on, and then you have the students themselves, right? So there's so many, and those are just the broad brushstroke things. There's all the minutia too, like the verbal cues, the energetic cues, the where's your knee at, the should I open the door right now? Like, is that person dying? No, they just need water. Okay, everybody take a break. There's so many things to remember and keep moving. It's like the flow, the practice that you're actually trying to get across sometimes gets muddled in all of the other stuff you're trying to figure out. So, a lot of teachers, I should say not a lot, but when I first started at the teacher training group that I was with, the head instructor was like, you've got to memorize. You can never have notes. As soon as you get up there, you're on. You can't have notes. And I'm like, That's not, no, we need to adjust that, because I appreciate that as
Right.
your philosophy, and that's great if that works for you, but you can't put that much stress and pressure on a human being and not give them a
Right.
safety net. Let them have their notes, let them have, a cheat sheet. I mean, by God, please don't go over
Absolutely.
there, don't go in there with your notes held in front of your face and you're reading verbatim, okay, lift your right leg, step through, crescent lunge, rise up.
Yeah.
Please don't do that. But if you just need a reference to go back to and say, shit, where was I at? Okay, crescent lunge, cool. All right, crescent lunge, we're going crescent twist from here, warrior two, got it. Okay,
Hmm.
cool, got it
Hmm.
now. But have those things, have those, and even I have I've done this many a times, but it was introduced to me by, by a yoga friend of mine that was teaching way before me. And he would always do these intricate flows. He never wrote anything down. It was all just off the top of his head. He would just, come up with this shit. And there were times where he would be like, "Oh shit, where the fuck did I start this at?" And we'd
Hmm.
be in downward
Yeah.
dog, and all of a sudden I'd see this beautiful little blonde head of his come by, and he's like, "Hey Adam, where'd we start at?" And I'm like, "Side plank." He's like, "Ah, that's right. All right, side plank. Got it. Cool. All right, lift your left leg, step through. We're doing a side plank, and then transition to crescent lunge." And then it gets going from there. So like,
Yeah.
utilize the things around you to make the process as smooth as you can. Don't just be like, "I'm never going to read my notes. I'm never going to have a crutch. I'm always going to be perfect and on point." The reality is we're
Right.
not. We're not. So we need to have
Well,
those things if we need them.
and exactly. And, therein is a whole other issue of perpetuating that culture of perfectionism
Mm,
that I personally am still struggling to get away from, because for my entire life I've been a type A perfectionist, and I mean, I'm not, I'm, yeah, gosh, I don't know. I could go on a whole other tangent about that right now, but
yeah.
the bottom line is that, like you said, we're all human. No one's perfect. We're all flawed. And I think when that perfectionism mindset is perpetuated, that just, it diminishes the yoga practice
Yeah.
of the students and the teacher,
Mm,
that everyone practicing as one, because I think that you really need to, people, not you, everyone needs to really learn how to embrace all of yoga, not just the movement, but how to embrace it and to intertwine it into life.
mm.
And if you can't have fun, and if you can't laugh at yourself when you fall out of your tree pose, and you feel like everything has to be so rigid and perfect. And oh my God, when people that know me hear me saying this stuff, they are just going to laugh, because people know that I'm such a, that I still struggle so much with this. But
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Gosh, when I first got deeper into my practice, so I started yoga the very similar way you did. I got into it for what I used to call vanity reasons. I was out of shape,
hmm
my back hurt. So I
hmm
wasn't looking for a spiritual practice. I was just literally looking to move my body. And
right.
when I started to get into the actual practice of it and started to understand like how it worked with my body, and I was just getting those little modicums of spirituality. I wasn't there yet, but it was just those little
hmm
toe dips in here and there. But I found this community that these like 3 or 4 yogis that like to take the same class as I did. We have off work around the same time, so we just started practicing together,
hmm
and having that community, to your point earlier, like having that community to where you can feel like you're gonna, like I'm gonna like open up and I'm gonna slap Zach in the face accidentally because we're so close together in these mats, or I'm gonna try to do a handstand and I'm gonna mess it up, but I know that Timory's to the left of me, and if I overcorrect and like accidentally just like step on her toe, she's gonna be cool with it because we're homies, so
right.
it gives you that comfort to be not perfect and to try to
Right.
figure out how to work with your yoga practice. I mean, I remember the
Yeah.
first time that I had like my first big fall in a yoga class. Like I'd been practicing for
hmm
maybe a year. I finally got the confidence to try to jump from downward dog and land in a crow pose. Like I'd been working on
hmm
crow, I was doing good, but I was trying to like get that momentum and jump forward. And it was during like an opening Sun A series of class. So everybody's like lift the heels, bend the knees, jump to the front, circle sweep, forward fold,
hmm
chaturanga kind of thing. And so
hmm
it was like this very paced class, and I jumped forward and I landed in my crow, and I'm like, yes, oh my God, I landed this. And then I felt my fingers getting heavier. I'm like, oh God, oh God, oh God, I'm falling forward. And I totally fell all the way forward, and I was right in the front row, right by the mirror, and I wedged myself
uh-huh.
upside down, head to the ground, butt up in the air. And it was such a packed class. If I rolled either way, I was going to take somebody out. So I just had to sit there
Oh.
upside down while everybody circle sweeped up and saw my ass hanging up in the air, and then they forward folded into me. And so moral of the story is after everybody got through their chaturanga, I righted myself, and the teacher came over, Tang, and he came over and he said, it's okay, Adam. Not everybody was born a ninja. Ninjas have to practice too. And I was like, oh, that was like the best thing that I never knew I needed to hear at that moment.
Oh, I
Because,
love it.
it's like everybody does have a point to where if you're looking to do something different, you're going to suck at it for a while.
Right.
And you're going to fall on your face and you're going to be awkward and it's going to be weird. But that's also where you learn a lot about yourself and a lot about what you're capable of and where those little maybe triggers, if you call it triggers, or the points of interest that you want to work on are,
Yeah.
We need to fall on our
absolutely.
face. We need to have those moments to where we
do.
understand where we want to change and how to enact that change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. With what styles were you teaching in person before you got to Zoom? So styles mainly like power. What we call Hatha up here is known as the Bikram style, 26 and 2, but it's shortened to a 60-minute practice from a 90-minute practice. So what kind of styles were you looking at or teaching?
Yeah. And I actually tell people I kind of hate this question because I feel like it's like the what kind of music do you like question where I'm like, all of it.
I listen to everything.
Because my 200-hour focused on Hatha and Ashtanga. Okay.
Okay.
I kind of started, doing Hatha. Like I was saying earlier, how it's all different teachers kind of take their own spin. I feel like I've kind of spun and intertwined stuff. So like when I teach my classes right now, I'll be like, I don't name them as vinyasa. I don't name them as hatha. I'm like gentle. I guess I do name yin because yin's kind of,
Yin's just dreamy.
Yin.
Yeah. Yin's yin.
Yin's yin. I call my Sunday class my most active / power-like class of the week. So it's like I've just kind of, I don't know, prefer to use terminology that somebody that maybe hasn't taken a yoga class before is going to connect with, I guess, is going to more understand. If I saw a class listing and I had never taken a yoga class and I saw the word, Sunday, 9 a.m. vinyasa, I'd be like, I don't know if do I want to take that? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah. And so I feel like I don't even really know what I teach anymore because
movement-based yoga.
Like I combine elements. So
yeah. Actually I heard it really put a really cool way one time by a young lady named Arundhati. She she was saying that, there's so many different types of yoga out there. There's movement, there's non-movement, there's meditation yoga, there's tantric yoga, sex yoga. There's all different types of yoga. And so the way that she kind of broke it down was saying that, for us, for example, right? So hatha, vinyasa, yin, slow flow, like the movement-based practices, the way that she put it was it's an asana-based practice because the asanas are the poses, right? And so I really love that because that's really just like covers it all, right? Are you a movement-based teacher? Cool. Yes, I teach asana-style yoga. From there, you can dial it down if you need to. But I really like that verbiage for that vocabulary.
I do too. And that's funny because then that just reminds me that I actually, when I finally started my yoga like Facebook page, because I'm like, oh, I'm posting my classes on my personal Facebook. Nobody wants to see that. Although now when I make a post on my yoga page, I just share it because I'm like, yeah, everybody needs to see it. So anyway, but when I was originally starting that, and I really had these grandiose intentions that I still have to follow through on, of really trying to make more posts about the other 7 limbs besides asana. You know what I mean? Like there's so much more, like and again, I'm a nervous energy kind of person that needs to be active, which is probably one of the big reasons I still do teach asana based classes. However, and so I had made a post and I'm like, there's so much more than asana. And the word yoga does not just mean an exercise / fitness class. Like if I'm going to start listing my schedule as these are my asana classes for the week. That lasted like 2 weeks and then I fell off and now I just call it yoga again.
Right.
But it's again, it's just, yeah.
It's, you know, and a lot of it's the effort, right? You're putting the effort forth. Sometimes the effort doesn't stick around, but you know, it's that initial effort. You know,
Right.
you know, I think a lot of us we beat ourselves up for that stuff, you know, and we get in those shame cycles
gosh,
of not
I'm the queen.
right, you know, and it's, you know, the thing served its purpose when it needed to serve its purpose, and if it didn't stick around, we can always dig into why. But the guilt and self shame model that we start to go with in our head of like, oh, there's another thing that I didn't follow through with, or you know, whatever that is, it's like, okay, if anything, we let's say don't succeed or don't fully see something through, just so we can hear that guilt and shame cycle, and then that's the work to stop that. Right. So if anything, it's like self-sabotage on purpose, so you can just feel that shame cycle and stop that shame cycle. Right. And that's such a sneaky little beast that comes in and starts to, it can sometimes sound like your higher self, like your ego whispers a little bit higher in the top of your head. And it's like, oh, loving things. And all of a sudden it's like, and then you're a piece of shit and you didn't do this thing. Why didn't you go to yoga today? It's like, oh, why do I feel shitty now?
Yeah.
It just sneaks in there.
So much. All of it.
With you know, and that's really stepping towards, you know, one of the other things I really want to talk to you about is self-work, you know, and we all have some kind of work to do, whether we realize it or not, whether we have the time or not. And I think that's a big key that kind of gets lost in the healing community. Is healing is a commodity that not a lot of people have the time, the space, the energy, the money for. Right. And there's definitely healing modalities out there for people that don't have, you know, a big financial stability or whatever that is. But it's also, you have to create a lot of time for healing. And if you have 3 jobs to support your family, and then between those 3 jobs, you're also making 3 meals a day for the family and getting that family up and ready for school and work and all those things, like, to be frank, you know, where do you have that time? Right. So healing is it's a luxury that not a lot of people have. But we all have that healing journey that we can take if we have the time and the energy for it. And so talking to you, precursor to our conversation today, you know, you kind of alluded to a healing journey yourself. And I would love to kind of talk to you about that, because there's, you know, we all have layers to our healing journey. Some of us have like internal trauma that we've dealt with. Well, actually, probably all have internal trauma we've dealt with.
Oh yeah.
But not all of us have, you know, like you're visually impaired, right? So that's something that probably has something that's something you've had to come to grips with and had to accept and had to do a lot of healing around, to get to a point to where you're at now. You're holding space for yoga classes. You have multiple degrees. You have your own yoga channel. You have all these things that confidence that got you to a point, to a place to accept you as you are, and still probably work to do, because we all have that work. But
so much.
Yeah, but you know, it's shining through the work that you have done so far. So where did that path start for you? Where did that healing journey start for you?
Yeah, gosh. I don't know. Like you were saying, you know, we've all kind of got that. And I think when I was a teenager was when some of that like anxiety and depression, those underlying issues when I started to notice them, but didn't label them as such, didn't really realize that's what maybe some of those issues were. And then as I, continued in life, I saw different therapists and whatnot for some of my mental health struggles. And I remember, and I, again, exercise has always been a form for me of healing. You know, it increases that, you know, serotonin and everything, that happiness booster.
Right.
And yet I struggled so much, and I still struggle a lot. And hearing you, you know, use the word confidence, referring to me, it just like blows me away, because I still struggle so much with my own self-confidence. And I remember I was in a pretty dark place in my I don't know, 7-8 years ago.
Okay.
In general, mentally. And I remember a friend saying that yoga wasn't going to help me.
Oh.
Going to yoga teacher training wasn't going to help me. And at that time, again, I was still didn't know all the benefits of yoga, but I was determined to make that a part of my journey and to see, because I had read so much
Mm.
about how healing yoga could be for, the mind and the emotions and the body and all of it.
Yeah, the whole package.
And yeah. And so then after my training and just that 4 week intensive, I didn't practice for a few months, and then actually went to Chicago, saw a couple of friends from training, and we found an independent yoga studio and went to a class. And then so that was in 2018. 2019, I was decided I'm going to practice every day, every morning, even if it's 5 minutes.
Mm.
And I'm going to at least take, if I'm not going to, I might just do one sun salutation. I might be in child's pose in the morning, but I'm going to do something.
There you
And
go.
I've stuck with that. So since 2019, 2020, 2021, I haven't let a day go by, and it might not be a movement-based practice, like I always like, especially on times that, like say I've been traveling or something, but I will at least take 5 minutes to, again, focus on one of those other limbs, focus on my breathing,
Yeah.
to take time to just try to calm myself down. And honestly, yoga has been one of those healing tools for me. I'm in a completely different space now than I was 5, 7 years ago.
Right.
I'm still not that. I'm still not healed. I'm still healing, and we're all going to be on a healing journey for the
Right.
rest of our lives, because shit's going to happen. We're going to have hurts, and we're going to have losses, and we're going to have changes, and we have to learn how to breathe through them and get through them moment by moment,
Mm-hmm.
and just continue to try. And I think that's all any of us can do, is to just continue learning how to move forward and to try to be a better person than we were a moment ago.
Damn straight. I had somebody on not too long ago, and we talked about the concept of being healed, like with the ED at the end. And I'm like, man, I've never even thought about that as far as like,
No.
healed, I'm done. Fucking great. Finally. Whew, that was a tough ride. It's like, God damn, I don't think that'll ever happen. Now, and that's not even taking into account the stuff that I haven't even encountered that I need to heal from. That's just the 41 years leading up to where I'm at now. Like, there's still so much that I haven't even thought about, that I haven't even realized that I need to unpack yet. Like, shit, I sit with a men's group now, and I had a men's group last week. My father passed away like 12 years ago. I'm not over it by any means, but I thought that I had dealt with it and grieved and done the things. And then we had a men's group last week, and man, I had a very big cry purge around that, around my dad, and around things that, again, I thought I had accepted. I had not dealt with, but I'd found a way to integrate. And but no, I'm sitting there, blubbering, just like having a big, nice, beautiful, ugly cry about my dad and about missing him. And so again, like, fuck, man, I don't know if I'll ever just like throw my fists up with joy and be like, healed.
No,
maybe that's how I'll go out. Maybe that's how I'll go out. I'll be having a heart attack on the way out and be like, I'm healed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I think a lot of those experiences, they really make us who we are. And again, they don't ever go away. They're still going to be a part. And there's things from my childhood that I haven't thought of, and that I, like you said, unpacking. It's like you come back to it and be like, oh, I think that might be where this started. It's like you kind of put some stuff together, and then you got to, I mentioned long time ago that my aunt passed away, and that's been almost 20 years. And like you said about your dad, like, I mean, I can still hear her. We were so close. I can still hear her voice and her laugh, and I could have a dream about her randomly sometimes, and then I think generational trauma plays a big part, even in who we are as people, stuff that happened in my own family before I was born that's reverberated in me.
Yeah. I had a
we could have like 5 different conversations, Adam.
Let's do it. I'm taking notes. We'll get back to it. But that's a really good point, because when I started working with somebody, when my healing journey started, I was still dealing with my own shit. I don't think anybody can help me. I'm going to help myself, and just dove
Right.
into it, and found a lot of help through books and podcasts and information. But once I got to a point where it's like, all right, I would like some help. I need somebody to hold space with me, therapeutic dialogue, take me on some journeys, blah blah blah. And I started working with this woman named Holly. And she told me one of our first sessions that it's such a profound thing to tell somebody and to remember for ourselves is that the healing that you're doing is not just for you, but it's for your entire lineage of humans that came before you that didn't have the time, didn't have the knowledge, didn't have the understanding or even the wherewithal to know that they needed to heal. So you're doing you're doing your healing not for just for yourself, but you're healing generations of trauma that's happened before you. But also look at the example you're setting for all the people that are currently in your life. And not to be like, look at me, I'm doing good stuff over here. But when you can quietly hold that space and show your family, your friends, the people around you, your life, that you're willing to do that hard work on yourself, like that really ripples through the community in a beautiful way. And it's not going to be absorbed by everybody, but the one or two people, the 5 or 6 people, whatever it is that see that you're on a path that is improving your life. And it's like, shit, man, where do I start? Where can I dip a toe in? That's such a beautiful example to hold for people.
Yeah. And circling back to the healing and to the word confidence that you used. I mean, when I was in that place, I was still on Facebook, for example, and I didn't post for a solid, 3 to 5 years. I couldn't even, I had such bad anxiety. I couldn't even I would see other people's posts. I couldn't even hit like, I couldn't comment. When we haven't even gotten into the whole Zooming and teaching on Zoom COVID stuff. But when I started getting into that, I had to start posting. I had to start getting myself out there. And I've always tried to be a pretty open person about my own struggles, and I don't always communicate it the best with people. So sometimes, and again, that's always something we're working on. And so sometimes I would avoid it. I had a big avoidance problem, or if I tried to discuss it, it wouldn't come out right. Things would be taken wrong, so I had to start posting, and I would make 3 different people look at my post. Is this post okay? Is it okay? Does it sound okay? Can I write this? I would be, for those first few months of posting, I was shaking as I hit that post. And even still now, depending on what I write or put out there, and, you've social media stalked me. So you've seen that I try to be pretty open. I'm very wordy. Brevity is not my strong suit, but, I try to put shit out there, and I still, depending on what it is, I still might have someone read it first for me. Like, does this sound stupid? Is this okay? Am I sounding, and I think, again, it's kind of that fine line, because I don't want people to think I'm, depending on what the topic is, feeling sorry for myself, for one. I don't want people to feel sorry, to pity me or to say, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, you've gone through that. I'm so sorry, whatever. Right. But I also don't want people to think I'm trying to oh, I'm so great.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's where's that, how do I find that fine line of really wanting to share my own experience to hopefully help just one person know that they're not alone if they have these same feelings. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, the social media side is very, very difficult. And I think a lot of people in any kind of, I'll just, again, use just examples that I have. A lot of the people that I know in the holistic community up here in the Northwest, it's the bane of the existence of, right? It's it's such a necessary evil to be on social media and to use that as a platform. It's a lot of advertising for a lot of us. And there's I think there's a big misconception right now with social media is that we now know how toxic it can be, right? We know how the algorithms work. We know how they play into our emotions in ways. But just because we know that that's the thing now, that doesn't mean we can circumvent it and we can skirt it because I'm smarter than the algorithm. And that's a really big thing. I hear people say that a lot. It's like, oh, I see what's going on. They're not going to get me. That's bullshit, right? There's a guy named what's his name? Daniel Schmachtenberger. He's one of the smartest guys of our times. He's such a beautiful, brilliant human being. He gives a lot of thought to the things that he thinks about. Like, he really ruminates on thoughts before he like puts it out into the world about what this thought could mean and all these things. But very, very beautiful human being. But one of the things that he does is he will he'll trick his algorithm on his Instagram, or for example, and to show him just police brutality videos for a month, right? And even though he knows that his algorithm is doing this on purpose, he'll still feel himself getting angry with cops and be like, oh, fucking the cops and the blah, 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 right? And this is injustice, right? And not saying that he's wrong, right? But that's, again, when that's all you're shown from a demographic of people, of course it's going to get your blood boiling. And so, and then the next month, he'll switch it to where it only shows him police positive videos, right? He'll start going through and liking all these police positive videos, showing police like helping people change tires, showing police getting attacked by civilians, right? And so, and he, again, will know that this is happening, but he empathizes with the cops, right? And he'll start to empathize with them. And so even though we know it's happening, it doesn't make us immune to it. And so I think that there's a big disassociation with that right now, where people think, oh, I get it. I see behind the curtain. They're not going to get me. Like, no, your brain is still very placating to all of those things right now. So, you know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning with our verbiage and using the word gift. You know, and the like I had mentioned way earlier, like the self-talk, how we talk to ourselves, how we talk to others. Like, if we're constantly putting something in our brains, that's what when we get comfortable in that anxiety, depression state, you know, it's like we have to constantly be filling ourselves with, you know, the good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, with social media, I mean, I try to do like 2 posts a day. And it's so hard to your point. It's so hard, you know, because I'm like, you know, are people thinking I'm braggadocious? Are people getting sick of seeing like, hey, look at look at the next event Adam has. Okay, we got it. You do sound baths. We get it. Okay, next. We don't want to see that anymore. But at the same time, like that was the story that I was telling myself in my head. And probably there were some people that have that story too, that were saying, you know, those things. But the reality is, now, because of the usage of social media and the way that I found my peace with it, you know, my sound baths are, you know, filling to capacity because of the advertisement. You know, I'm able to get Reiki clients in from outside of where I normally would because of that type of advertisement. So, you know, I think it's really finding your niche with it and finding your peace with it, and knowing that, okay, I'm not just going to talk about how great of a life that I have. I'm not just going to post all the beautiful pictures of like, hey, look at me surfing and all this fun stuff. Like, we're going to talk about some real shit. I'm going to put some different quotes out there. Yes, I'm going to advertise for myself, but I'm also going to talk about what other people are doing. You know, so finding your rhythm with that piece of social media, and then just kind of adhering to that is what I found works. But it's still like, every time I go to post, I'm like, oh God, this again.
Hey, I'm impressed if you're doing 2 posts a day. I'm lucky if I do 2 posts a week.
It's a necessary evil, like you said earlier.
It is. It
is. Well, you'd mentioned Zoom, and I apologize for skipping over that. But I want to talk to you about Zoom. No, you're good. I struggled with Zoom a lot in the very beginning until I found my pace with it. But once we switched to in-person and Zoom, so a lot of the Northwest studios, once we got back to in-person studios, we did a tandem style where, you know, the people that didn't feel comfortable coming into studios could still get a Zoom class. You know, a lot of studios will like set up a laptop in the back of the studio. You know, you have some kind of audio going to it, a microphone of some sort. So you still get an idea of the studio experience, but you're also teaching an in-person class. And where that really got cumbersome for me was I would end up ignoring a group of people. And it usually was the Zoom class, because the in-person class, they're right in front of you, they're tangible. And then I would just forget that there's a laptop back there that I got to placate to as well. So, so for you, what was your experience with Zoom?
Yeah. So, kind of going back to when I first started teaching in general, I was very nervous about it because that is where I'm going to go first before I start talking about Zoom. Because I was very nervous. It took me about 8 months after my first training to start teaching, because I was like, how am I going to do this? I'm not going to be a teacher that walks around the room and does adjustments. You know, I'm not going to be able to look over at a student and be like, you need to, you know, change this position. So So at first, my first few classes in general in person, I told people, hey, I'm going to be staying on my mat, you know. So I kind of got into the groove of always really trying my best at the beginning to encourage students to do what feels best in their bodies, to find what poses, what shapes work for them. If they don't want to do what I'm doing, don't do it. I'm offering suggestions. They make the decisions for what's best for them and their bodies.
Beautiful.
All that.
Yep.
So, okay. So then March of 2020 happens and everyone immediately pivots to Zoom. And I immediately start, all that anxiety starts creeping back. How am I going to do Zoom? I'm not going to be able to see them on the screen. And how am I going to set up the camera for myself to know if I'm in the right frame and all that? Yeah. And then it took me 7 months, because at that point I didn't teach for a couple months. Then it was summer. So I started teaching outside at the parks. And then October hit, and it's like, all right, I can't teach in 40-degree weather. I'm too cold. Yeah. So I'm going to have to learn how to teach on Zoom. So I just started with, a couple of my friends, like unofficially, I'm like, okay, I'm going to figure out where exactly to put my laptop in my room. I'm going to stand back on my mat. I'm going to lift my arms up. You tell me what you can see. You tell me how to where I should move my laptop,
Yeah.
So then I basically knew exactly where to set my camera up. And I use this magnification program on my laptop. So even when I'm sitting down with it, I only see not even a fourth of the screen at a time.
Gotcha.
When I'm on a Zoom meeting with somebody and their camera's on, it's like their face is huge, just like right up and, and so then I started telling people, I'm like, you know what? I can't see you in real, like in-person class. If you want to turn your camera off, turn it off. I can't see you if, we're not going to be as, unfortunately, as in community as we might be in person. Mm-hmm. However, I've discovered, and so again, it took me a while, like first while was just friends. And then I started promoting it after about 2 months in these classes. And I don't know if everybody likes it, but I think some people do like it. I think people do like having that ability to have that camera off, to truly just be in their own zone, to not worry about what other people are doing next to them, to not worry about other people thinking that they're doing something wrong. And I think it actually gives people, more of a chance to be more introspective in their own practice, to listen more to their own bodies and what they need, and I've had people tell me, like, that was a fast class today. I was in child's pose most of it. And I'm like, good.
Exactly. Yes. Wow. That's a really good perspective. It's almost like giving them permission to really do their own practice. Like we always tell people, this is your practice. Do what feels right. Don't do anything that hurts.
Exactly.
But then you still see people like pushing themselves through because, and I can do this myself. Like I used to be like halfway through a vinyasa class, like say I'd been like, oh, I am effing tired. I'm not going to do this last chaturanga. And then my buddy Zach next to me does a handstand to chaturanga, and I'm like, fuck. All right, well, I guess I'm handstanding this one out, But to your point, it's like we can be driven by those around us, and that's cool. But we can also have the freedom to listen to our bodies and really give us that nurturing practice that we need, or that adventurous practice that we want.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a really, Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to comment on the Zoom cameras because so my girlfriend Monica and I we're both yoga teachers, and we started teaching. Mm-hmm. We pretty much so I think the studios closed down on the 18th. And then I think it was like the 21st we started Zoom classes. So we were like right afterwards. And we weren't doing it in studio. We had the opportunity to go to the studio because they had the equipment there just in case we didn't have like the microphones and stuff at the house. There was never anybody at the studio. You were there by yourself. But Mon and I, we were able to do it in our living rooms. And there was an awkwardness for the teachers to get used to it, and I won't speak to that yet. But for the camera side, so the first couple of classes that we taught, everybody was just excited. They're like, "Oh my God, the studios are open again. We can do yoga, even though we're all quarantined. We get to do something. Oh look, there's Tracy. Oh look, there's Shelly. Oh look, there's Max. It's like cool. We can see people again. This is great. Brady Bunch screen. Everybody people had their hair done, and even though if it was a morning class, people are still like yoga ready and got their headbands and shit. By like the
Mm-hmm.
third class, screens were off. There
Yeah.
the people that would like before they turned their screen off, you could see the bed head coming in. They're like, "Oh shit, my camera's
Right.
still on." They're like, going to
Yeah.
hit the. And so it was just beautiful to see the progression of the Zoom yoga. Of like at first, it's like, "Oh, excited! Look at us, we're doing this," and then like 3 days later, no, just give me my yoga. Turn the screen off. But
Yeah.
to give them that freedom to, I'm just going to lay in shavasana for an hour and wonder why I haven't cleaned under my couch for the last hour, for the last
Mm-hmm.
3 years. Why is that Dorito underneath the TV stand? Like, good Lord.
Right.
But you have that freedom to just do the practice you want to do. And it was really funny to
Exactly.
get that feedback from the students. So
Yeah.
so as you built that confidence and as you started to build the following, how did that change for you? How did that manifest for you?
Um, I love Zoom classes now.
Mm,
Like again, I do miss I had mentioned earlier, I do so much better connecting with people in person, and I do love that community of being in person with people.
yeah.
But I for one, I can't drive, and so it's so much easier for me to just go down to the basement than have to worry about who's going to, coordinating with different family members or friends or whatever,
Hmm.
how am I going to get to this studio or that? Um, so selfishly, I love the convenience of Zoom. Um, and also I've been able to continue teaching, like when I have, gone to, now that, we can start safely traveling again.
Hmm.
I've been able to teach from when I've gone places. I've been out at my cousin's in LA, and I've been able to teach from her house.
Mm,
And I love that. Like I love how, the pandemic did really show a lot of people who do have like more, let's say, office jobs, I guess,
hmm.
or, a place, a physical place that they have to go. It's really opened up the world to that remote work. And I love that, so it's like, okay, I don't have to actually take 3 weeks off of trying to make some sort of income to go somewhere, because I can still do some of this.
Definitely. Yeah,
So,
that was a big eye opener for a lot of yoga teachers. It's like, oh my God, we can be mobile now. Like I don't have to
right.
just be in this state at this studio. Yeah, to your point,
Uh-huh.
when we could safely travel again, it was February 2 years ago maybe.
Uh-huh.
We my girlfriend and I went to Hawaii and stayed with some friends that live off grid up in the mountains in Hawaii, and they
Hmm.
literally got internet connection just for us, so we could Zoom classes from their living room while we were in
Oh,
Hawaii
that's
and still
awesome.
keep those classes. Right? It's like, oh, this is great, and our students loved it because they're like, oh my God, where the hell are you? What's your background? I'm
Right.
like, oh, I'm in fucking Hawaii right now. It was
Yeah.
beautiful, and we were all over their property. We do it in their garden. We do it in their house, on the beach. It's just like this on location yoga, and it was so beautiful to have to. And a lot of the students they were so excited to live vicariously through us and to see that,
Right.
like, oh, that's such a beautiful, thank you for sharing that sunrise with us, because a lot of times our classes
Hmm.
are early in the morning at it'd be like 6 o'clock in Hawaii, 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the mainland, and they get to
Hmm.
see the sunrise with their yoga practice in this beautiful like
Yeah.
Hawaiian setting and stuff. So I think there's a lot that we'll start to unpack about the benefits but of Zoom. But I do like to ruminate about just talking shit about Zoom, and I've noticed that about
Yeah.
myself. And I think I got to do some work around that, but I'm not there yet. I'm still talking shit about Zoom.
No, I know. Me too. And going off of my selfish reasons for liking Zoom, of the, transportation, I also like how it's opened up, not just the ability for any of us to teach from anywhere, but I tell you what, most of the people that come to my Sunday classes are not from my hometown. My
Oh,
cousin from Nevada comes. She's pretty regular, that comes every
hmm.
Sunday. My friend from Denver comes, a couple of friends from Chicago, like I've got people from all over, which I love.
That's beautiful. Hell yeah. Yeah, I did have my sister-in-law popped in on a couple classes from Texas and with some of her friends down
Hmm.
there. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful to like be able to really access a lot of really good yoga that you don't have to go to a studio for.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the
Mm-hmm.
things for me. I really dove into sequencing during COVID for myself, and was
Mm-hmm.
able to look at a lot of the teachers that I'd always held in a high regard, but never really been able to take their class. They're in a different part of the country, take any workshops or seminars. But with COVID, a lot of people had nothing but free time and were willing to share that free time. And so, like, I can't tell you how many
Right.
great, like, sequencing workshops I sat through, or, body awareness, anatomy, functional anatomy, all these things, like watching Kat Meffin, watching Patrick Beach, watching Dylan Werner, and all these different
Mm-hmm.
ways that they put their classes together, and just feeling, the different styles and modalities. It was so beautiful to, like, dive into that. And have the time to dive into it, and I understand, like, COVID wasn't a godsend by any means for the whole community
Right.
or for the
No.
whole world,
Yeah.
but there are little modicums of good that come from the bad. And I think that's,
Absolutely.
for me, especially on a personal basis, that's one of those really big good things for me, was the chance to finally not feel guilty about not going to work, because I've been a corporate person for 30 years roughly, and to
Mm-hmm.
to have that freedom to really dive into the things that I loved and not feel guilty about it. Like, I'm still
Mm-hmm.
progressing, I'm still learning, I'm still doing this stuff. So, like, with COVID and Zoom, like, that was a really big blessing for me. But I had to find it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
didn't seem
For
that way in
sure.
the beginning.
Well, and it, if you don't mind, I'm going to circle back a little bit. I'm
Hmm.
still going to talk about Zoom, but
Yeah.
circling back to like my whole, you know, being a legally blind yoga teacher. And I think maybe I could be wrong, but I don't know if this is what started the conversation between you, and you call him Patrick, I call him Pat, but our mutual buddy. I recently received a grant from it's called Teaching for Equity,
Mm.
and so we had to like write essays, and basically present a project, um, and it could be anything, whatever yoga teaching. It's basically teaching to communities or people that may not traditionally have access to yoga classes,
Mm.
or maybe don't think they do. Again, it's teaching for equity. It's just trying to make yoga, circling back to my also obsession of having yoga for everyone and
Uh-huh.
be all, so I proposed, being able to, and so the grant offers the teachers a stipend, and then we offer 12 classes free of charge to our community.
Wow.
So they could be in person or virtual,
Mm-hmm.
or again, however we want to set them up. Like, we pretty much have that ability to make the times,
Mm-hmm.
everything. So I'm so blessed that I was chosen as one of the 50 recipients, and my project was to offer my free classes to the blind, visually impaired, low vision community. So
Wow.
um, and those are on Zoom, because again, I'm offering them virtually, and also I can reach people from all over, not just the United States, but anywhere in the world. So this morning I just had my third of the 12 series, and um, I've one of the really big things about not just Zoom, but for me, back to teaching in person
Mm-hmm.
and or being a student, is the verbiage, the description.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, so thus far I've had some pretty good feedback. I've also drawing back on that community, I decided to make that movement part of the class, the asana part, 45 minutes, because again, a lot of people, that's how they get drawn in, want to come to yoga.
Uh-huh.
They want to learn how to move a little bit more. And then we use the final 15 minutes of the hour to just talk. And,
Hmm.
they give me feedback, or we just talk. Again, it's only been 3 sessions thus far, but like, sometimes my words are certainly not perfect. As much as I try to be descriptive, sometimes I'm like, what? I don't know what I'm trying to say right now. Like,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
so, so yeah, we've had some feedback afterwards, and they'll be like, what exactly did you mean when you were trying to explain this? And then I'll kind of have to reformulate what I meant. But
I'm
yeah,
so happy
so
to hear that you're giving the student space to give you that feedback, because That's so important for the students to realize that they can give real-time feedback to their teachers and to ask follow-up questions about that stuff. Like I've never taken a class from you, so I don't know what your queuing's like, but I
You're
know
welcome. You can join
hey,
anytime.
you know what? I teach Sunday mornings at 9, but I'm gonna try to make one of your Sunday classes. Like I love trying out new teachers. Oh gosh, what was I thinking about? Oh, I
I
lost
know
my
it's
train
one of
of
those
thought.
brain freezes.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I'll come back to it in a minute. Let me see if I can think about it. Okay, so but with Zoom, and so are you growing a platform now or a following now with the visually impaired community, or are you finding a mix of like all different kinds of people are finding your classes?
Yeah, yes and no, both and nothing. Once again, the answer is always all of it.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if people are, when I first started teaching on Zoom in general, and also in life in person pre-pandemic, most of the people that came to my class were fully sighted. That being said, I still taught how I needed to learn. So I still have, described everything. And also when you're on Zoom or in person, it's not good if you don't know, even if you can see someone, you shouldn't have to like turn and crank your head to try to look at
Yes.
what someone's doing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, so when I first started putting stuff out there, I had quite a lot of people coming to my Zoom classes. It's definitely fallen off. Zoom fatigue,
Yeah.
whatever. The
Yeah.
times I am not an evening person. I do not teach any classes in the afternoon or evening. Like I am all morning all the time. And it's early for a lot of people. It's 7 a.m. in Seattle for you.
Right.
I mean, So, so I understand that. So, that being said, I've had a really good turnout with these Teaching for Equity classes. Granted, they're free. I actually offer all of my classes in general donation based because not only do I want my classes to be like physically accessible for people, but people are all at different financial stages in life. I want them to be financially accessible. I want people to know that they can come to a yoga class, and I don't want them to be held back because they can't, they might not be able to afford the $10, $15, $20. Like,
right.
If you can't afford to come to my class, I still want you to have some yoga.
Exactly.
And I guarantee you what somebody else might be paying me will help to make up for that. So
damn straight, and that's a beautiful place to work from. That's the way we run our Reiki sessions. It's like we have a price, right? If you can meet that price, great. If not, what can you afford? Everybody needs healing. I'm not going to turn you away just because you ain't got stuff in your pockets. That's totally fine. You know what? Bring me a brownie, all right? Bring me a piece of cake.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. An energy exchange of some sort, but get your damn healing in. Don't let finances stand in the way of your healing if you can find it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, I'm still, I'm still trying to get out there to everyone and hope that, again, there's so many teachers out there, and not everyone teachers for everyone. I will say that I had someone come, a blind student come to my first 2 classes last week. My classes are Wednesday and Saturday for that program. Okay. And she sent me a PayPal Saturday afternoon because in my Google form that I sent for all of them, I'm like, would you also like to receive my email with my schedules and links for my classes that are separate from my donation-based classes, separate from this. So anyway, I received a PayPal from her that afternoon. And I reiterated that week in my email for all of these new people that had said yes to being included. I was like, this week, all I have is Sunday. As a reminder, Sunday is my most active flow class of the week, just because I wanted to, let people know that hadn't been to that one. And she came, like, I was super excited that, even just one person from that program thought enough of my class that she also wanted to come to, one of my donation based classes.
Hell yeah.
It really, granted, I don't know what her feedback is yet, but
but you know what, you got her there. That's a huge step, and I think so. one of the things that I used to talk about a lot, and not just me, but it was part of the teacher training group, and a lot of teachers talk about this. It's not just my concept, but it's you teaching from authenticity, right? You teach from that authentic place that you come from your highs, your lows, from your successes, from your failures, right? You embrace you as a human, right? You embrace the gifts that you have in whatever capacity that is, and when you teach from that place, the community that needs your style of teaching, that needs your style of healing, will find you. They will find you every time, and they will support you, and it will be a beautiful thing, but it's got to be authentic. You got to really embrace where you're at, where you're coming from, the ignorance that you might hold, the knowledge that you might hold, and just really teach from that space. And when you do that, it oozes out of your pores, and people will find you that need to find you. With the, we've kind of run through a lot of topics today, which is the most beautiful thing. I love it so much. As you're kind of putting all this together, like everything's in flux right now. Movement, you got building in your online yoga. You're doing a little bit of trauma-informed yoga trainings, on the side. You have law degrees, you have nutrition degrees, you have all these things. Like, I love when we can find the way that all of our weird interests in life, and I don't mean weird as in like it's strange, but it's just, like sometimes how does law and nutrition work together? I don't know, but for the person that holds that information, when we can find the way that all the cool stuff that we're interested in find their niche and their piece and their place in the puzzle of our personal lives, those are where those actualization moments happen. And you find that beautiful product, that beautiful gift that you have to offer the humanity, because of all the cool, weird, random things that you've learned throughout your life that nobody else can put together because they don't have the brain capacity that you have as an individual, right? Because everybody's brain's built differently. So when we can find the ways that all the cool information that we have mesh together into this beautiful thing that we can present to the world in some kind of way, do you feel like you're moving towards of like, man, all of this stuff is starting to make sense in some kind of way, and this is what I'm now working towards to culminate all these things together?
Yes and no, I guess. I I feel like my brain is not as full as it used to be. Like, maybe it's just age. But I was telling someone the other day, I'm like, there is no, like, how did I make it through law school? There is no way I could do that now. Like, it's been, almost 20 years since I graduated undergrad. So almost 20 years since I started law school. But yeah, so anyway, but there are just little things that fit in with all of it that kind of circle together. And sometimes I would tell people, like, I regret going to law school, or especially regret going back to school for nutrition and dietetics, because I really never used that one. But actually I did. I was probably the unhealthiest in general, like physically in general, when I was going to school for dietetics. And I just kind of like learned and it changed my eating habits and the way I live my life. And, so, I incorporate all that knowledge, but like for, like law school for example, I was just on the phone with someone yesterday and she was like, I love that you do a Google form with a waiver and a disclaimer. And I'm like, I guess like maybe I wouldn't have ever thought of that had I not gone to law school, for example. But now I'm just in that mindset. I'm like, even though these classes are free for this program, I still won't send them out their Zoom link unless they sign that waiver and liability form, So there's definitely the parts that stick with you that teach you things. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, it didn't take me as much or as long to seek out that type of information because I already had that kind of knowledge in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do. And that's a big important one for a lot of people in this holistic community that don't have the full understanding of the CYA procedures, right? The cover your ass procedures, right? And that's something that I was very, very thankful for having in my previous life, in my corporate life. I worked in restaurants, and so from slips, trips, and falls to waivers for things to like all the CYA stuff you really have to have. A lot of people don't really understand that when they get into yoga teaching, energy work, things like that, because a lot of the people in those communities, at least early on in the practice, or whenever this started to gain popularity, didn't have a lot of I shouldn't say that, but maybe didn't have the awareness of the things that we need to make sure that the world is still the world, and the world is kind of vicious at times. And if you come across the right combination of person with viciousness, then that can be pretty nasty for the individual, right? So how do you protect yourself in those situations? And so, yeah, I share that. I the first couple times I sent some stuff out and had some Reiki people signing waivers. I got some sideways looks, but I'm like, that's where I come from, man. I got to make sure that if something goes sideways, that my family is still taken care of. Well, as we start to kind of like wrap things up here, so there's actually one word I want to bring up, because I was reading through a couple of your Facebook posts, again, social media stalking, and and you had made a post about aparigraha, non-attachment. One of the yamas and niyamas.
One of my nemesis.
Oh my gosh, it's such a hard one. It's such a hard one. But I really appreciate the post that you had about non-attachment, and that's something that I
made a few, so I don't know which one you had looked at, but
it's the most recent
not
one.
that it matters. You don't have to. Yeah. Not that it matters, but
it's I just to kind of comment on your earlier message about the post that you make. I really appreciate the post that you have read, the post that I have read that you've made, and you're sharing information that might be like, very, very common vocabulary to some people, but might also be that thing that nobody's heard of, or that person hasn't heard of. And it's like, oh my God, what is that word? Non-attachment? I attach to all kinds of, and then you go through it and like, oh my God, I'm relating to this. It's just like that little bit of fish hook. It's like, oh, I got you now. Come on in, buddy. So are the yamas and niyamas, is that something that you're kind of working through? That's something for me. I mean, it's something I kind of dip in and out of. I'd like to put more time towards the yamas and niyamas and the understandings of and the applications of. But it's something I kind of feel like I dip in and out of,
Yeah, same. It's like I just, I love them. Like I love rereading and relearning about them all. If you were to give me a test, I right now off the top of my head, I couldn't list them all without a cheat sheet.
Right.
Because again, my brain doesn't work as well as it did 20 years ago when I could memorize things in school. But I was just this was that same phone call that I was on yesterday. I was just saying that I really want to try to start incorporating some of that into my yoga classes. Like maybe just have a class on ahimsa and try to just little tidbits. However, I'm so busy talking because I'm so busy describing everything during my class. Like I'm using so many words to describe what we're doing so that my classes are accessible for both sighted and blind participants, that I'm struggling to figure out. I'm like, okay, so maybe first I need to just get people in with the asana classes. And then maybe I need to create a workshop series, or like a 6-week series or a 10-week series, all right, we might not do so much asana, or maybe we'll do a half hour of asana and then we'll do some, some philosophy work, and we'll talk about ahimsa or, whatever. And, but yeah, in life, I definitely, like you said, I definitely dip in and out of thinking about them. I just reread the Yamas and Niyamas book.
Great book. Yeah.
Deborah Adele.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
I think. Yeah. And there are like study questions at the end of each chapter. And so again, another one of my intentions is to really go back and look at and work on those questions. And they're really great because I think it was like, I want to say she suggests like using a month for each one. So it's like, for this month, focus on like these questions on this one, so it's not just a fast homework assignment. Like it really encourages you to delve in. And so again, that's another one of my goals.
Right.
I'll get to it.
We'll get there. That's just keep that list moving. Keep that list going. And that's with journaling. That's such a beautiful modality for healing. And I too would like to be better about journaling. I would like to make more space for that. And journaling about the yamas and niyamas, about the 8 limbs, just like giving yourself a month. That seems like a lot more achievable for me, instead of like Because then you have time to ruminate around it. You have really time to like
Right.
sit with it and be like, okay, so today this is what aparigraha meant for me, non-attachment. But
Yeah.
tomorrow, non-attachment might mean something totally different. Like my
Uh-huh.
oldest daughter's 17 and she's about to go to college, and I gotta have really strong aparigraha practices around her
Right.
leaving and creating that life for herself that she feels is going to be
Mm-hmm.
beneficial for her, not the life that her mother, stepfather, and I and Monica have decided. So it's really
Mm-hmm.
her choice, her life. Get out there, make me proud, make yourself proud, and you're gonna fuck up, but it's part of the journey.
And what I also love so much about, I mean, just focusing on the yamas and the niyamas, like, yeah, these words are very foreign to, a person that hasn't studied them.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to create a story around them or trying to explain them in real life ways, real stories,
Mm-hmm.
I think it helps people to realize that, oh, that's a part of yoga. Okay, maybe I am doing yoga if in my life I'm focusing on do no harm, but I didn't realize that it could be called ahimsa and it could be a part of yoga. So actually, am I practicing yoga? Oh,
Mm.
awesome.
Yep.
And I think it just kind of circles back to also I just love them because it's like if we all really did delve into the yamas and the niyamas and just try a little bit each day and a little each moment, we all would be better people,
Right.
you know?
Mm-hmm. It really, it's such a beautiful, like, not like a rule book, but it's just guidelines. Just these. Hey,
Yeah.
here's these little bumpers. Like, how are you?
Mm-hmm.
How are you studying yourself? Right? How are you
Yeah.
loving your neighbor? How are you staying safe? Like all these different
Yeah.
ways that it's kind of like the golden rules of life, just presented in a different way,
Right.
different context.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we just all need that, again, none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. We all do, uh, we all F up,
Mm-hmm.
a constant daily.
Yep.
We all do things we regret. And it's just coming back to that and being like, I'm going to try to be better this afternoon. And I'm going to mess up again.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to realize that and I'm going to reflect on it and I'm going to try to be better again.
Yep.
I'm going to continue with that cycle of trying to be a good person and of accepting myself and others and just trying to spread some love, kindness, and compassion out into the world.
Damn straight. And I love that you mentioned, with this next breath. It doesn't have to be tomorrow, right? Oh, I fucked up today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I screwed my diet up today. I'm just going to end up eating cake all day. And tomorrow I'm going to start better.
Right.
Like you can change that immediately. Like with meditation for me, for example, like, I'll notice my mind wandering and then I could just throw up my hands and be like, oh, my mind wandered. My meditation is ruined today. But that's the immediate like response to, okay, cool. My mind just wandered. I don't need to know what I'm going to have my grocery list. Come back to your breath. How do you feel your breath on the top of your lip? Do you feel that? Cool. All right, sit with that space. And then your brain's going to wander again and you're going to catch it and come and bring it right back. It's the same thing with life. Like, you don't just throw up your hands and be like, today's fucked. Screw it.
Right.
All right. No, cool. Okay, I just now noticed. And because of that notice and that awareness that I have, I'm going to bring these next moments into that alignment and then see how long I can withhold that or hold on to that, but then don't beat yourself up for losing it. Don't beat yourself up for your mind wandering. It's doing what it's programmed to do. It's supposed to wander. It's supposed to think, we're going
or even
against
the mistakes you make.
Yes, exactly. Because there's so much knowledge that comes from that.
Yeah. It's like, I have spent a lot of time in my past, making a mistake and being like, I'm a terrible, shitty person. I hate myself, but those are, again, just those stories that we tell ourselves and we have to rewrite them and I think so many people, we focus on the bad. We dwell on the bad, me included. I'm working through everything. But if we really start to remember the good things that we've done and the parts of us that are, overwhelmingly, I think people are more good than bad.
Yes. Agreed. I think a lot of people are just trying to do what they feel is best for their families, for themselves, to keep people happy. And sometimes we don't have the broad view to see how that decision could affect other people outside of ourselves or our family. But still, like, the heart is in the right place, even if we don't understand what that heart is doing, right? We can't really dissect people's feelings and emotions. We can only get what we either observe or what they tell us. And so, a lot of times where we feel people are going against us as individuals, they're just trying to do what they feel is safe for them and their family. And and that, as hard as that is to understand, because there's a lot of ignorance wrapped up in that, there's a lot of hatred wrapped up in that as well. That's not excusable, but there's also not everything is hatred, and not everything is anger, and it's just a different perspective sometimes. And when we can approach it with that wherewithal to hold the space, to feel the different perspective and to hear it, then make the understanding of like, okay, whatever that decision is from there, but give the person the space to be heard, right? To be heard in their authentic way. Yeah. Well,
I could go on for 3 more hours, and I know we need to wrap it up.
I know we could just keep rolling with this, but I do actually, I do want to kind of like tie it all together in this really nice kind of way. In tying it back to the confidence comment that I made about you earlier, and how we kind of like talked a little bit about that. One of the things that comes up with me with that, because I have a hard time accepting compliments about myself from other people. Like I'm like, I don't see what you see. Good for you, but all right. But but we as the receiver of the compliment shouldn't diminish the complimentor, because that is something that it might have taken them a lot to get the confidence to say like, hey, I really appreciate this about you. Right. And so one of the things that one of the quotes that I love that kind of wraps up around this idea is, my relationship with you isn't based off of how you see yourself, but how I view you. Because we are the hardest on ourselves. We know all the dirty shit we've done. We all know all the stuff that all the weird thoughts, all the stuff that we could be judged about. We know it more intimately than anybody else. So of course, when somebody comes to you with like, hey, you look great today. It's like, oh God, I just woke up. My hair's all fucked up. I have like cereal on half my face. It's like, what the fuck? But, but they see that in you. And just because you don't see that in yourself doesn't make that untrue for them. Right. And so hopefully that truth that we can accept from the others will help us start to diminish that story that we tell ourselves, that we're not enough, that we're shaming ourselves for whatever decision we made or didn't make, or blah, 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 whatever bullshit story we have. And then we start to really feel the love from outside of us, and let that kind of build us and find that confidence, or that sure-footedness, or whatever you need to have to really see the beauty that you hold as a human being.
Yeah, I'm really working on, when someone compliments me or says something nice, I'm really, and I don't do it all the time, but really working on trying to just say thank you instead of, arguing.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Thank you. Okay. I will sit here and I'm going to awkwardly smile and just say thank you. And then I'm going to tear up and walk away because I don't feel I deserve that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yes. The human experience. It's a beautiful thing. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Aly, thank you so much for joining me today. I really loved our conversation, and I'm so excited.
So did I.
Oh, man. I'm so excited to see what you keep doing. I'm going to try to make one of your Sunday classes. What time are your Sunday classes? Your time, Central Time.
9 a.m. my time, 7 a.m.
7 a.m. my time. Okay. All right. Well, you know what? That might be a good warm-up for me to get ready for my class that I have to teach at 9 a.m.
I won't let you come until you fill out my waiver. So
exactly.
I better put you on my list for that.
Oh shit! All right. Well, if I don't see you online anytime soon in the next couple of weeks, I hope to see you in person when you come visit Pat.
Oh, absolutely. You're on that small list of people I got to see in Seattle, and I really appreciate you thinking that I'm worthy enough to be on your call. Thank you. Or your podcast. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I've so enjoyed chatting with you, with all of the tangents I go on, and I am very much looking forward to Patrick's episode.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for the journey today. I appreciate you so much, and I look forward to meeting you in person soon.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
All right. Talk to you soon, love.
Bye.
Thank you so much for spending time with Aly and I. If you like the show, please hit like, leave us a comment, and subscribe to it. Obeisance and love to y'all. We'll see you next time.